Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live at the Waterhole with Wild Earth and African. My name is Ben Coley. I will be with you for the next 2 hours as we once again journey across all of the cameras at our disposal across southern and eastern Africa. And we've started out this afternoon in Tembe Elephant Park with a lovely close-up of a couple of elephant bulls enjoying a drink, as is often the case here at Tembe. But nice to see these mirrored bulls enjoying the water now, hopefully being restocked after a little bit of rain over the last few days across the country, which has been excellent. As always, just to remind all of you wonderful viewers that we are live, we are interactive, you are most welcome and in fact encouraged to send in your questions, your comments. I'd love to hear what you're up to, what you're thinking about, any thoughts you might have on what we're seeing, or any questions with regard to anything to do with nature or the stars. Those of you that know me are very, very happy to answer any and all questions that come my way. But yes, it has been an interesting week or so. I've been away doing some guiding over the last week, and we've had some thunderstorms. I've even seen a little bit of hail, a lot of threatening of decent rains, which haven't yet come. We've had a few millimeters scattered around here and there, but definitely clouds building and a few little downpours. Nothing too dramatic, but the sky itself has been wonderful. Great to watch a bit of an electrical storm the night while I was guiding. There was a storm over the Little Drakensberg Mountains as we were driving back to camp, and we saw sheet lightning and cloud to cloud and cloud to ground lightning and those ominous rumbles of thunder that we associate with some. So still waiting for that great downpour, but hopefully the seasons are very much changed, and all of these poor water holes that are not being naturally pumped will be restocked very, very soon. Good morning to you, old punkster. I'm glad that you can join us again, and so hopefully we're going to have some wonderful sightings here. You never know what you're going to get, of course, on these cameras, but pretty much about the only place where I'll guarantee you elephants. They have been very common this time of year with their water requirements, and so I'm convinced that these elephants never leave Tembe waterhole here. They just stay there day in, day out. But as I always say, why wouldn't you? Well, looks like a little pair of jacanas coming to investigate the elephants there on the right. Joshua Drown, from you as well. Thank you for joining us. It is very nice to be back. And so I'm very excited that as of, no, we're not in November yet, but towards late November, I will be hopefully back on screen doing some live safaris at both Mabulla and Juma, if all goes according to plan. It's been quite a while since I've been in the driver's seat in front of the camera, and I'm very much looking forward to actually not seeing everybody, for you to see me, perhaps. But yeah, going to be great to get back to Juba, and I'm very excited to go up to Mabulla. It's been a long time since I've been on Mabulla's game reserve. These slightly different ecosystems and slightly different vegetation type over there in the Waterberg. Ari, greetings to you from the Netherlands, and Heidi Swiss as well. I'm not sure if that means you're in Switzerland, but if so, to hear from our European counterparts. Never ceases to amaze how many different nationalities and countries be to these amazing images. And it is rather humbling to think how many of you are watching and continue to watch on a daily basis and listen to mine and my colleagues' musings Or maybe you put us on mute. I don't know. Enjoy the wildlife, but completely understandable if you do. Greetings, honey badger. Well, honey badger will be nice. Saw one in Kruger last week. One just across the road. They kind of prance, honey badgers. They have lovely gait. They bounce when they run, or they trot, sort of a bouncing trot. David, you're asking whether Tembe has a record of their biggest tusker. Well, I'm afraid I didn't know off the top of my head, but they do, it seems. His name was Isilo, which is Zulu for king. He passed away of natural causes in 2014, but had tusks weighing somewhere close to 60 kilograms, 2.5 meters in length, circumference of 50 centimeters. So rather magnificent. There are some pictures of him on Tembe's website, and they do look like a formidable pair of weapons, certainly. So Isilo is the largest tusker on record at 10. It's been a while since I've seen anything that would be considered a big tusker. The last one I see in the south of Kruger, not too far away from Crocodile Bridge in the Gardenia hide, but I'm going back a couple of years. I wouldn't like to guesstimate the exact size, but certainly one that made you stop and double take. Impressive. But yes, few and far between now, I'm afraid. Always nice to see the diversity at Tembe. Always some bird life interspersed amongst these great elephants. There's the jacana, the woolly neck storks. There's always some Egyptian geese somewhere. But it is a good time for birding at the moment. The summer migrants are back, or the majority of them are at least. The barn swallows have returned. The European bee-eaters have been here for a couple of weeks, as have the warburgs, eagles. The cuckoos started calling. Did a quick little birding foray yesterday afternoon just outside Hoodsprace along some riverine vegetation, a new area that I hadn't explored. Well, to one. And as last time I went, I managed to get a half-collared kingfisher again and a finfoot, which is always very, very special. I was really looking for the Pell's fishing owl, which apparently have been seen in this area, but we didn't have any luck yesterday. But it was a very strange afternoon. Thunderstorms were building. But we still had a good afternoon. Got some nice unusual ones. Saw trumpeter hornbill, juvenile African goshawk, pair of little sparrowhawks, and I annoyingly haven't logged it because I couldn't say for sure, but I'm about 75 sure that I saw a couple of magpie mannequins, which it would have been for me, which is rather annoying that I couldn't then find them again to confirm because I have to see it to be absolutely sure before I can add a lifer to my list. So I will definitely be going back to have another look for it, as well as the elusive green twin spot. Many of you may know, particularly those of you in. So that is my bogey bird. I have been looking for that bird for 20 years. everybody I know has seen them. People I know have taken pictures of them, but they just elude me. But nice thick brine habitat, like that, a good spot. So eager to go and try and finally tick that dastardly twin spot off my list. Oof, Debbie, when did I first create my list? Well, many years ago now. I have to say, when I first came to South Africa, I was not very interested in birding. In fact, I was a sort of petulant student when I was doing my training back in 2000 and 2007, and I purposely avoided doing birds because at that point I had no or little to no interest in them whatsoever. And it was only when I was actually doing my work placement, or at that point, and lodge was closed for a week for refurb, so we had no guests. I couldn't go anywhere, so I just started out sitting next to the waterhole with a pair of binoculars and a bird book, and pretty much starting from page one and scrolling through until I found the relevant bird. And it became rather. It also helped one of the other guys there was a keen birder, so I got to spend time with him. So I suppose you could say my list is running for what, about 18 years now, although in the early days, I didn't really start recording them properly, probably the last decade or so. Amanda, I agree. Ellie's always such a pleasure to look at. Well, excuse me, everybody. Sorry about that. A little choking incident. Having a sneaky packet of chips on in the background. But they are such a pleasure to look at. But everybody seems to be very much enjoying life today. Lots of dust bathing, lots of drink. I enjoyed the way that large tusker there was draping his trunk over his tusk. Always nice to have a handy little hook with you for that sort of purpose, and one at the back, just side a little dip. It's always so lovely to see these elephants sort of playfully drinking in where water is very much at a premium. They don't spill a drop. We saw that last mouthful that he put in. He pretty much sprayed into his mouth, and half of it fell out everywhere. Rather amusing to watch. That was a more controlled gulp, it seems. But I'm rather enjoying the pebble dashed effect on the forehead. But I'm just very happy they're going to be getting some more food very, very shortly. We saw last time I did live at the waterhole here, was it 5 or 6 days or so ago? We actually did see some rain down there in Tembe, and some rather bedraggled looking impalas and a couple of elephant bulls having a wonderful time in the water. But it's going to be amazing to watch the bush over the next month or so. Even with the little bit of drizzle that we've had, we're going to see all the shoots, the new growth coming through very, very quickly. I've already noticed that quite a few of the knobthorns have now started to flower. Of the, I'm going to call them acacias or vachilias or senegalias, as they are now should be termed, have also started to seen lots of new growth coming through. It's going to be a wonderful time for the animals soon. Right, well, a good strong start to the afternoon down here at Tembe. So it's all the way up to the northwest of the country, and go and have a look at Tower Lodge in Madikwe. Somewhat desolate landscape and an impala rolling across like a tumbleweed. I learnt the other day, in fact, the weeds, which we very much associate with North America and Westerns, is actually an alien invasive plant. I can't remember where it came from now, but I assumed that it was a North American thing, but it seems that it wasn't. Or isn't. It's Waterbuck just enjoying a nice rest. Interesting little gathering of elephants over there. I wonder what is of particular interest there, whether there's a nice mineral in the soil there that they're investigating, or possibly just nap time. You can see this one closest to us just standing there with trunk resting on the ground. A good sign that that elephant is sleeping, because they do sleep standing up, just like horses and some other animals. I was reading about interesting things about sleep the other day, actually. Recently discovered that it seems that jumping spiders might dream, or they at least go into REM sleep. They were filming jumping spiders and see that they started to twitch and their eyes don't move in their sockets. The retinas can actually move around and change the angle so that they can pick up stimuli without moving their heads, just like you or I would move our eyes themselves. And it seems that they did sort of twitch around as well, and legs twitched, and the sort of legs curled up and then extended again, suggesting that, well, things very much associated with REM sleep, but something I'd never considered that spiders would do the same. So there was a bit of a debate in this article I was reading as to whether spiders dream. I wonder what a spider's dream would involve. Flies, perhaps. Elephants, of course, only requiring very little sleep, only about 2 hours a day, and but they're quite capable of going 2 or 3 days without any sleep on long migrations. One I read about was then I got sort of lost in the rabbit hole of animals and sleeping and animals and dreams. The chinstrap penguin takes about 10,000 little snoozes for just 1 or 2 at a time throughout the day, giving it quite a few hours of sleep. But yeah, they have micro sleeps for only a few seconds, but repeatedly during the day, which I suppose is a way to keep an eye out for predators. If you can literally just sleep for a couple of seconds or less than a second and do that repeatedly, but still have enough time to do whatever it is that is the reason that is still up for debate, whether it's to conserve energy or others suggest to help our immune systems and the generation of white blood cells. We still don't really understand the necessity of sleep, but interesting how animals are able to do so. And then you have the unihemispheric, and which is sleeping with one half of the brain at a time. So birds in flight and some fish and things. Interesting field of research. Strangely quiet today. Normally associate Tau as a bustling area of activity. Just a few ellies dotted around and one lazy waterbuck. It'd been interesting to know what those elephants were doing, but nice to see the little ones. We didn't mention those. Looked like one was having a drink. Um, Jenny, I don't know if I've seen any what I would consider crazy elephant encounters with other animals. Obviously, I've seen elephants and lions have a few disputes. I did one day, very unfortunately, not so much witness more than hear because it happened at night time, and generally we try and avoid elephants at night because of their eyes, and they do get a little bit more jumpy in the evening. Um, but there was an interaction between lions and elephants, and unfortunately, we did lose a lion evening. But quite what actually happened, of course, we don't know. We just heard all the commotion. Yes, unfortunately, one of the cubs died, and well, there was chaos everywhere, and the pride disappeared. But we did find one juvenile who had obviously become separated during all of the chaos, and he just plonked himself of a termite mound and just waited. And of course, it's one of those horrible mixes as a guide where we're not there to interact or to assist in any way. So because of what did what we call closing the sighting. So we closed the sighting so people didn't go in there and view this poor little youngster who was probably about 8 months old who'd become separated and hoped that the pride was going to come back. But after all the trauma they'd obviously experienced that night, we didn't know if to be the case. We didn't see hide nor hair of them. They went next door to the neighbouring property for 2 or 3 days. And I know for one, I was getting very worried about this youngster because still needed the protection of the pride. If a hyena had found him or another male lion, that would have been that for him. And then one morning, I'm delighted to say that we found tracks of one lioness crossing our boundary. We tracked her all the way through the reserve because this incident happened in the northern part of the reserve. The tracks went exactly to where the youngster was, and then we followed the tracks all the way back of the female now with the youngster back across the boundary. So in the space of one night, she probably walked, I would think, 7 or 8 kilometers, went to find her long lost child, and then took it back to the rest of the pride. And when we did see them again about 5 or 6 days later, everyone was present and correct. So that was lovely to see that maternal instinct of the lioness. But in terms of crazy encounters, I mean, I've never really seen um, an elephant attack anything unnecessarily. I once saw an elephant kick a buffalo. That was quite amusing. Just a young bull came over to investigate a buffalo that was quite happily just sitting on an open area ruminating. And I think, if I remember rightly, sort of, postured a little bit and waved its trunk around, and you could almost see the buffalo just kind of look the other way and continued ruminating and just said, "I'm so not interested in what you have to say." And then this young bull obviously got a little bit annoyed and literally kicked the buffalo, who then up, and the elephant ran for its life, which was quite amusing to see. Otherwise, just watching youngsters chase birds around and warthogs around is always a delight. Tony in Watford in England, who've gone back to the like tumbleweed, and that you think it originated in Russia. That does sound familiar. It was actually some American guests that I had recently who were telling me about it, and apparently the entire tumbleweed population in the States started out from just one seed, which is pretty amazing. But just shows you what happens when you introduce an alien species to an environment that doesn't have any natural predators or any natural threats. We see it time and time again, from cane toads in Australia to possums in New Zealand. And obviously, we have various issues like the prickly pears, in terms of alien vegetation over here in South Africa as well, not to mention many other alien animals, the Indian miners, another one that springs to mind. So with no tumbleweed out here, you'd think it would be quite at home blowing across these dusty plains. The closest thing that we have, a thing called rolling grass, which is a type of grass growing very often, but does have these very sturdy sort of lateral shoots coming off the main stem, and does uh, it does roll across the ground as the wind blows. It's just another way of doing seed dispersal. My favourite one, which of course we have been doing over the winter, is the spear grass with its hygrostatic awns. So the little seed and those long, almost like antennae off the seed that make up the spears, and the way they get all twisted and matted together in the dry season, and they all fall off and burst in the wind. And then when the rains come, uh, the addition of moisture there causes that awn to start, and it literally rolls itself across the ground until it wedges itself into a little nook, and then potentially even itself. If you actually look at the seed casing under a microscope or with your binoculars upturned, you can actually see it's always threaded like a screw to help it wedge itself in the ground, just to give itself a good starting point for planting. Some interesting there. That bull came up and looked rather intimidating at the one in the water who reacted, and now everybody seems to be fine again. Joanne Miller, you'd like a croc. That would be nice. I know we do have a few in Tau, but I believe they haven't been seen for a while, whether they've decided to move to a larger waterhole. But I'm sure if our zoomies spot a croc, we can have a close-up look at it. Another animal that sleeps with one half of the brain at a time, always keeping one eye open for potential danger or food. A very tender greeting ceremony. Lovely to see that little baby in the background, hiding behind these two bulls. Yes, keep coming closer, little one. We would like to admire you. Those legs going twice as fast as the adult just to keep up. Jive Bunny, you're saying a cheetah had a lucky escape at Tower yesterday with a croc, and there's a video. Well, I shall definitely have to check that one out. I was busy yesterday, I missed the show. But brilliant to see a cheetah. Oh, that would be nice if we could replicate that. But yes, I remember that video from many years ago from one of the Mara safaris when we were broadcasting from up there of the cheetah that got taken by the crocodile. So it is a danger, certainly. But crocodile lots of food. I'm very, very happy to hear that the cheetah got away unscathed. Lovely to see the zebras approaching the waterhole as well. Often you'll find the stallion will lead his mares down to water, but that looks like a mare in front who looks somewhat pregnant at the moment as well. But I guess probably because it's so open, the stallion is fairly confident that there is no danger awaiting these at the waterhole. So he'd rather bring up the rear just to make sure nothing's sneaking up behind them like this little warthog. I think that's the stallion on the right, just keeping a wary eye open. So it looks like a pregnant female, the one looking from right. You can just see how low the belly is hanging there. Are a little bit more contrasty. The black is a bit blacker, the white is a bit whiter, and the stripe pattern just seems a bit more obvious in stallions. Actually, nice to see them all so closely. You can compare the stripe patterns and just see how unique they all are to each other. Look at the one in the middle of those three on the right with the little spots on the top of the back. That's a nice feature. And some very distinct shadow stripes on that individual. What a beautiful colour in the reflection of the water. Almost looks like sunset. Oh, that one in the middle, or the one moving from left to right, almost out of shot. She's just stopped there, is very pregnant. But I have seen quite a few little tiny zebra foals over the last week or so, so they are definitely coming. It won't be long until we see the first impalas as well. I saw a couple of impalas who looked like a little poke of a stick in the stomach might be enough to get the birth process. Okay, that was a nice little visit to Tao, though. I think we're going to head over to Quameratam. Beautiful views of this grey heron having a preen. This heron's one of the few species of birds that don't have a preen gland. They rather have what are called, or what is called powder down. So on the chest, there are specially feathers that are never molted. They just continuously grow, and the tips of them break down into this fine powder, almost like a talcum powder, which is then spread over the feathers. The same as which many birds will use that uropigial gland to oil the feathers. That powder down has some good antibacterial properties, just all designed to keep the feathers nice and clean. But looks like in this situation, we're just doing some routine maintenance. If you ever see a heron sort of scratching at its chest with its feet, it has this adapted toe, which is designed to break down those feathers and then can transport that powder across the rest of the feathers. Oh, you see, it's had enough. It was beautiful heavens, I agree. Oh, let's have a drink. Of course, we're lucky to have various different species here. I saw the rather beautiful white-crowned heron, sorry, black-crowned night heron the other day on a night drive, enjoying a drink. Striped heron, which used to be the green-backed heron, very common. Black-headed heron in various parts of the country, although very, very rarely in the Lowveld. And then I get most excited about is the Goliath heron, magnificent creature. Haven't seen one outside of Kruger National Park for quite some time, but they are really amazing animals. And then black heron, which we used to see, where was it? It was up at Victoria Falls, although I don't think we've seen him for a while. And that amazing hunting they have of bringing their wings out and sort of enclosing them in front of their bodies like a cape, a Batman impression, just to remove the glare of the sun on the water, so he or she can more easily see the little fishes. Okay, let's head up to Kenya to Great Plains' Oldonyo waterhole. Typical scene of some elephants having a drink and the other animals waiting patiently for opportunity. It seems we have headed back out. We had one or two issues up there in Oldonyo. Elephants swaying in the wind. It looks like he's having one of those naps we were talking about earlier. Or a zebra having a roll. Lovely. think let's roll the dice and look at Jabalani's camera. Ah, it's a little pool party. Where boys will be boys. Well, isn't this your watch? Completely submerging themselves in the water, having an absolute blast. Robin, how do sightings where there are kills make you feel? Robin, I think, well, so I've mentioned this before. I'm okay with it most of the time, but it is quite a traumatic. First I watched it, it did sort of the reality of it all hit home. It's that say everybody wants to see a kill because it's exciting, but actually a lot of people when they do witness that sort of thing, the harsh reality of it all does hit home, and it's one thing to watch it on TV, but to actually sit there and see it happening and see an animal succumb to a fair death, it has to be said, from an emotional perspective, is quite difficult to watch. Always, as always, it depends on the animal that is doing the killing and the animal that is being killed as to how they react. The nice thing about leopards and things, of course, is that they tend to choke out their prey first, and it's all quite a quiet thing. But if lions take out a warthog, is the worst one. The noise that those warthogs, the squeals, I'll never forget that. It was the first kill that I ever witnessed. And to watch about 5 lions ripping apart the warthog and the noises was making, I mean, I think nightmares about that. It's pretty horrific. This one's doing a proper face plant in the water. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's an amazing thing in terms of being a part of that circle of life. But it's not as easy as a lot of people think that it might be. two little submersibles there, or two very big submersibles, I should say. I wonder if this other one is also going in. Where their feet just stick up in the air. We've had their little trunks moving around like periscopes. Not often you see this actually, elephant full on swimming. I don't get to see it very often, even out on drives. Normally come down for a drink and then move on. So during the heat of the day, probably more prevalent. Obviously, we're generally out mornings and afternoons where there's feeding to be done. Oh, this one is going to join in as well. Why not? See Rosie Adams, poor old amber eyes from the other day. It does look as if she has lost an eye. Uh, yeah, such a shame. But it doesn't. I've seen a few without eyes over the years, or have been injured and have that sort of glassed over, almost like cataraxy type effect on them. Amazingly, I don't think it'll slow her down. Her depth may not be quite what it was, but most of the times tend to heal pretty well. And hopefully, with the support of the pride around her, also helping with the hunting, she'll still be able to have enough food. I'm not sure if we know exactly how it happened. Um, it's pretty nasty. I saw one leopard have its eye injured. He got a claw in a scuffle with another male. Next few weeks, it completely sort of glassed over, and so he learnt or had to change his hunting strategy and became much more of an ambush predator as opposed to anything else. Just lie on the top of termite mounds and wait for warthogs to come in and out. But that was very nice to watch those elephants. I think if they are still around, we're going to go up to Lentora in Kenya for herding. I believe there were some birds here, but we may have watched those elephants for too long. Maybe something else comes down. Nice to see some, looks like some bees come to enjoy the water. Come on, little birdies. Where are you? Yes, Rosie Adams will have to see obviously how she does, going back to Amber Eyes, Amber Eye now. But say from experience, I don't think it'll hamper her to adjust the support of the pride. She's got the structure of the pride around her that will all be taken into account. I'm sure she'll be fine. We'll just have to hope that it heals without any infection. But say most of the time, these things do heal pretty well on animals. Pretty amazing. I was actually again reading something interesting the other day about ants and them being able to produce from certain ants antibiotic properties. And should another ant have an injury, particularly this was I think seen on like ants and things that have little skirmishes with termites with big jaws, that they will actually look at these and apply and sort of anoints them, which does a wonderful job in being bacteria away and allowing these to fix. And femur be broken or injured, the ants amputate and then treat the amputated wound to ensure that it also doesn't get infected, which is pretty amazing. It's the only other animal I believe that's been seen other than where other members of the group are actually assisting and sort of performing medical operations, which is quite incredible. But as far as we do birds, look at these beautiful guys. They certainly look like Jameson's firefinches to me, with that very, very red head. Other possibility is red-billed firefinch. I'm just trying to get a close enough look. But such is the redness of the head, I'm assuming James. Beautiful, beautiful on them. Again, I will happily admit that my knowledge of birds is not as good as it is in southern Africa, certainly. Close enough look at that bill to see whether or not it was red. And so the red bills usually have sort of a yellow eye ring as well. But definitely a firefinch of sorts. But that was pretty to see. But I think we're going to head back down to Juma now, see what's happening at Juma. A family of warthogs. Spa day for the warthog family. Face off between this impala and the warthogs. personally very much looking forward to the first baby warthogs of the season as well. One of those things that always makes me smile. Little tiny warthogs. I don't know what they don't really run. They scamper, I think is probably a better word. Scampering around the bush. Danielle, you agree that they're the cutest. Absolutely. So these are a decent size. When they first come out, they're tiny. They're like, what, 25, 30 centimeters in length. Their little legs going at breakneck speed. Mum's got a pretty impressive set of tusks here as well, I might add. Might explain why she's got three youngsters that have all made it this far at least. A fairly formidable mechanism that she's got. I suppose officially, actually, we should call them tushes as opposed to tusks, being so small. Nice to see some birds coming down along with others. I should also add that I saw my back starling of the season yesterday as well, which is one of my favourite birds. The incredible deep purple iridescence that they have. I often ask what's my favourite bird. It's impossible to remember on one, but that one is always there. So we've got a couple of glossy starlings off to the right. The violet back starling used to be plum-coloured starling and an interim migrant. But yeah, so didn't see a male. Was one a female that I saw yesterday. Having a scratch on mum. Warthogs are so comical. I love them. Mum seems to be okay. Is that really? Everybody's decided to have a scratch on mum. I don't know if I've ever seen Warthogs scratch on mum before. It's very funny. I think she's beginning to get a bit sick and tired of it now. Rosie Adams, yeah, that probably was a little bit of wind. I'm afraid the my computer's not very good at picking up the all cameras. But I agree. Last night there was a big storm, although again, I watched them coming in, and we had a little tiny bit of drizzle, probably half a millimeter if we're lucky, but it never properly rained. But there were some quite strong winds, but definitely lots of things happening. It's trying very hard, particularly over the mountains. Keep seeing a lot of thunder. I think the Nelspruit area probably got some rain yesterday. They were forecasting thunderstorms yesterday afternoon, and it certainly felt like thunder. But yes, the wind picked up in the evenings after a very, very still and humid afternoon. But alas, no great storms as of yet. But we are hoping. Excuse me. This is really lovely to watch these little interactions between warthogs. We often get a chance. They either loll around in the mud and then they trot off and do a little bit of feeding, but it's not often you get to see interactions like this. I don't think I've ever seen one scratching to that extent on Mum. Whether that was also a bit of a face scratch or there was something else going on, Mum's also going to have a little scratch. But lovely to watch. Copying Mum. I think these two just, this youngster in particular, there's still a bit of zest in him now. It does look like a young boy with that extra little, just see that little protrusion above the tush or the tush. I'm going to go back and harass my sister. You can see the wind rustling through the grass there. Not sure if there is officially rain forecast for this afternoon. I just want to check for where I am. Yeah, it doesn't look like it, but cloudy and possible storms for the next hour or so. But certainly doesn't look like it at the moment. Hide behind Mum. Good plan. Mum just said, "No, sort it out yourself." You? It's definitely a troublemaker, this one, eh? Oodles of personality. You're right, Mercedes bin. Yeah, that water is even lower than it was last time I saw it as well. It's I've never seen Jumadam so low. So let's hope that all of this almost rain actually arrives. We need a nice big deluge. But say what we often get here is a storm with sort of 40, 50 mils, and then it all slowly dries up and everything sort of washes away. What we really need is hours and hours of continuous drizzle. That would do the bush a world of good. See, the wind's certainly picking up, so maybe change in air pressure, possibly bringing in some stormy weather. Let's cross fingers. Okay, well, that was wonderful to see. I thoroughly enjoyed that little warthog interaction. I think we're going to head back up to Lentore again and see what's at the waterhole there. Ah, and a fork-tailed drongo by the look of it. Well, there was a fork-tailed drongo. Oh, he's back. Hugely intelligent birds, these, of course. An ability to mimic. Particularly pearl-spotted owls they like to mimic, I've noticed. So they'll be on guard at the moment. They'll be making their type nests soon. And they'll have to be on the African cuckoo, which is their exclusive parasite. What's that in the background? European bee eater or something, or a European roller in the background? I want to see. Or are you a lovebird type? Okay, but I think we're going to head back over to Kwamaraton quickly. Or maybe we can stay with this Drongo. No, we're going to go to Kwamaraton. Ah, no, Heron is back. Also swaying in the breeze. Lovely speckling on that long neck. It's quite nice. He's almost facing straight at the camera when himself up. His head and beak almost completely disappears. Gives you an idea of their sort of how slim they are, really. Very sturdy legs. They're much bigger feet than you tend to give them credit for, but just helps them not to sink in the mud. Some beautiful views of this heron. We're going to head back over to Jabalani, and sounds like we have some more lilies of the water. Oh, the little one. Hello, little one. If this little one's going to fancy a roll around in the mud. No, we're just going to rub our face in it. Oh, there we go. Plonked ourselves down. Okay, I think we're going to head back over to Juma quickly. Wow, some beautiful close-ups of these red-billed oxpeckers on the impala. Look at the way that tail was fanned out just to give the oxpeckers a little bit just in the wind and its moving perch. And some kudus at Gary Dam now. Warthogs, kudus, impalas. But yeah, look at the wind through the area there. Worry leaves that don't get shed in the winter. Evergreen trees, if that's the right word for them, but some deciduous. Very, very waxy coating to those leaves to limit water loss. Not quite keep up with the kudu. Come on, catching her up again. Oxpeckers traversing down the neck into the ears. So plenty of ticks this time of year with the nutritional stress that these animals are under. They will be picking up slightly more ticks than normal potentially, although there won't be that many ticks around this time of year. One of the perils of summer is the amount of ticks and the pepper ticks. really hear the wind now. Lots of kudus coming down for drink. Nice to see. Never quite know how many is in a group because they're so well camouflaged. I saw it again just a few days ago out guiding. We stopped and we were watching one kudu, and then before you know it, they're moving and you realize there's 6 or 7 in the group. So simple yet so effective, those little white stripes, and also helps when you're that sort of dull greyish colour. Just blend in perfectly, particularly at this time of the year. See the kudus there traversing the floodplain, and they will just disappear when they get to the tree line. It's just like they take one step in there and then gone. Hopefully we'll see a nice bull at some point. I actually saw quite a few last week, but say in this area you tend to get the bulls with the relatively narrow horns. Um, Up in Madikwe at Tau, if we see kudu up there, or particularly in that area where it's a little bit more open, you tend to get the more wider spread horns. Also up in the Waterberg area, a lot of our kudus here have more narrow horns, which is because we have a lot more vegetation, thicker vegetation up here, and you don't want great big wide spreads getting stuck on everything. Of course, they will also be used to bring down new shoots from higher branches. I actually saw when I was guiding last week something I don't know if I've ever actually seen before, which was a female giraffe who was feeding on a tree. I can't remember what it was now off the top of my head, but the only branches that had any leaves were just out of her reach, which reaching up, using her tongue like a lasso, just being able to get part of the branch in her mouth was actually manipulating her head and actually snapping branches so that they would then hang down so she could reach the leaves. I don't think I've ever actually witnessed a giraffe sort of snapping branches almost in the way that an elephant would do to reach the upper branches. That was rather clever. But that's what we love about the bush. You never know what you're going to see. And at the moment, with such as the nutritional stress the animals are under, it's a good idea to be adaptable and find ways to reach that food which is just out of reach, potentially be life-saving. Okay, I think we're going to head back to Oldonio and see what's afoot. Well, maybe we'll stay at Juba a little while longer. You can see the camera blowing in the breeze. No, we'll stay at Juba a little while longer. But nice to see kudu out in the open. Of course, they're not getting much moisture from what they're eating now, so they do have to take the opportunity to come down for drinks. But of course, in and around the dam, even though it is drying up, there's plenty of underground water along that drainage line system. You can see this tree here growing out of the termite mound, some next to it. So those trees have also got access to a little bit more nutrients than some of the surrounding areas of vegetation, taking advantage of all that activity under the ground. Rosie Adams, you're worried about the waterholes getting stuck in the mud. Well, so far so good, but so am I. Yes, I've seen it happen before, and it's horrible. Um, at least if Mum's there, she might be able to help them out. But it doesn't. The mud is too. What's a good word for it? Too stodgy around there at the dam. But yes, I have seen it before. Warthogs, Inyalas, Impalas can all get stuck in that mud just when things start to dry out. So we will cross fingers that that does not happen. But that was a lovely shot of those oxpeckers earlier. See that tail so fanned out. Okay, let's head back up to Madikwe and Tau. Oh, look at that. So cute. I so want a little baby elephant. It wouldn't go well, but just the sweetest little things. What you got, Mum? How close staying to Mum, weaving in and out of those legs, using Mum a bit like an umbrella for the sun. See Mum's fairly swollen mammary glands under those front legs. If we're lucky, maybe we'll see this little, looks like a little girl, have a drink. Oh, that's just adorable. Ellie, I was just thinking that you said amazing that Ellie was as small as this one time. It was so nice to see them lined up next to each other. Yeah, just see what happens in a few years. So a little young elephant calf weighing in at probably around about 100 kilograms, so it's about 220 pounds. And from that, up to 6, 7 tons for a little boy, up to about 4 or 5 tons for a girl. A lot of growing to be done. Oop. Difficult to age this little one. I would think the fact that she can still walk under mum without touching. I think not more than a month old. Still looks a little unsteady on legs at times. Looks like mum's just having a breather. Again, you can see the trunk resting on the ground. She's just having a little doze. Surprised when they do it so out in the open. You often see them in the shade of a tree at least. But we've seen a couple of them here at town, possibly just taking advantage of the fact that she can see any potential danger coming out in an exposed area like this. And I think this little one's probably not much more than a month. You can still sort of pink behind the ears. But that is pretty much the safest place you could possibly be, little one. No one's going to mess with you there. Brits, you're saying listen to mum. Absolutely. Well, I wonder how many messages are being passed between them that we are not privy to. Sure, lots of messages and come on, keep ups and little bits of education that's being doled out there, words of wisdom from the wise. Strange to see her so isolated from wherever the rest of the herd is. Maybe with such a little one, she knew that she had to slow down and she'll catch the rest of the herd up later. A little one like this will need to rest pretty regularly. So it does make you wonder whether the little ones are getting a sufficient amount of energy or as much energy as they would like to have. Mum under great nutritional stress this time of year. She's got to produce enough milk for this youngster. You can see some zebras hiding in the distance there, but not sure where the rest of the group of or this breeding herd is. It must be a sensory overload at this age. It seems to be a bit of a mummy's girl, this one. Not straying very far from her side, possibly because they are separated. So, as you rightly said, Ritz, maybe Mama said, do not wander off. We're out on our own for now, for whatever reason. So you will stay close to me. Currently doing a brilliant job of hiding behind Mum's front leg. Irina Kalinin, you just love animals. Well, then you have come to place. Irina, that is what we do here. Animals from the biggest all the way down to the smallest. It was lovely to do a little bit of birding up at Lentoria with those firefinches of one description or another. Right, there we are up to some of these beautiful ellies. We've had zebras, we've had wildebeest, we've had so that beautiful heron at Komaratan. Some nice diversity today. Waterbuck, we've seen the impala, the kudu. I think for me, other than this little one, I'm really hoping that it decides to get out from in front of mum's. Oh dear, it's sleepy time. Highlighters. Oh look, come on, little one, are you okay? We're watching those little warthogs, and that's a slightly boisterous young boy having a scratch on mum and harassing his sisters, I believe. But this is just too cute. I think maybe this elephant is on her own. So that little one, I think, possibly struggling a little bit, very, very young, needing to rest, maybe a little bit left behind from the herd. And how cute was that? A little nudge from mum's foot, just so you're all right. Of course. There are a couple of other elephants dotted around. They look like bulls to me, but maybe they're a little bit further off to the left. Just decided to just go off to one side and have a bit of a break. And maybe they're also enjoying watching the wildebeest and the zebra. Who knows? Rosie, do I think that they sometimes learn from what I assume you're referring to the elephants? Absolutely 100%. I'm completely confident of it. They've got such well-developed brains. Whilst there is obviously some instinctual knowledge in there, the specifics of how to on certain things, and what to eat, and the whole idea of self-medication, where to go, and learn where the water is in time. Yes, absolutely. I'm sure they do learn from one another, 100%. Well, these wildebeest look as if they're having a bit of a lie down now. Let's head back to Tembe and catch up with our Illies there. Interesting to see the little jacana again. Don't normally associate jacanas with where elephants are drinking from. The one, I wonder if he hasn't learnt something about where the elephant is disturbing the water, if that's disturbing any little arthropods and things, and possibly allowing for a little bit of hunting success. That would be a good example of learnt behavior as well. So we see it all the time in things like egrets and the drongo that we saw briefly. But certainly something that I've ever heard about was jacanas utilizing the movement of other animals to benefit their own feeding strategies. That would be an interesting thing to look into. It would make perfect sense. So those drongos are so clever. When I was working in the Sabi Sands, and we used to go off-road into sightings, we'd often have a fork-tailed drongo following the Land Rover in, feasting on the things that we disturbed, moths and crickets and grasshoppers that would get out of the way. Even had one come down and take a grasshopper off somebody's shirt whilst we were sitting in a sighting. Well, thank you, Joanne Mello. I hope you have enjoyed today's broadcast. You too must have a wonderful and thank you for joining us, and thank you for thanking myself and Tulu, who's been in my ear, helping me navigate the cameras, and all the other wonderful people in Johannesburg who are making these pictures possible for all of you. I hope you've enjoyed it, Joanne Mello, as everybody else. But your message also made me glance at the time, and I see we only have around about 2 minutes left, but it has been a wonderful afternoon. So I think for me, the highlight definitely those little warthogs playing around. And it's still making me chuckle just thinking about it. That one scratching on Mum until she got a little bit irritated with the whole thing. That little baby elephant. Um, we were just watching at Tao was just a cuteness overload. I hope she's okay. She looks a little bit tired, but so sticking close to Mum, I'm sure she'll be all right. I really enjoyed that very, very brief view of the oxpeckers. We've had the beautiful heron, as always, wonderful sights of daily occurrence. And I'm delighted to say that I will be with you again tomorrow, and in fact, for the next 3 days after this. And we will see what else turns up. If there was a cheetah seen at Tau the other day, I'd love to be able to do that. I still feel that I'm missing many predators. I think we've had a leopard briefly and a very brief view of some lions. But if you guys could send some predator fortune my way, as well as some, would be greatly appreciated. But we are down to the last minute or so now. To all of you who've tuned in, I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope we have brought a little bit of brightness into your beginning of the week. And as always, be back again tomorrow from 12:30 to 2:30 Central Africa. But wherever in the world you are, enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope that you'll be able to join me and the team as from tomorrow.